Hello, geography students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 12, Section 2, The History of Northern and Southern Europe. We're going to start here talking a little bit about Southern Europe. It was the home of two of the world's most influential civilizations, the ancient Greeks and ancient Rome. Ancient Greece was basically formed into city states, which basically means a city is like its own separate little country, and each one was independent. So, for example, the city states of like Athens and Sparta would be like two rivalry towns when we talk about high school athletics. They would occasionally go to war with each other, but they also had two very different types of governments. After the Persian Wars, Athens was known as the most developed city state and was also known as the first known democracy. A young man named Alexander the Great was tutored by a Greek philosopher known as Aristotle. And by the time he was 18, he had conquered Greece. And at the age of 20, he became the king. After his father had died, he carried out his father's plans to conquer the Persian Empire. And when he died, his empire stretched from Greece to India. Alexander the Great died at a very young age when he was in the process of trying to conquer India. And so he died in his 30s. In the Roman Empire, we had Emperor Constantine. Emperor Constantine came a little later, and he was known for moving the capital of the Roman Empire from the city of Rome to the city of Constantinople, which happens to kind of bear his name. For a time, the city was known as Byzantium, but was renamed Constantinople after Emperor Constantine. Part of this was so that Constantine would be closer to the trade routes of China and Southwest Asia and further away from the barbarian attacks that had been plaguing the western part of the Roman Empire. Due to repeated invasions, uh, the empire in the west basically ended in around the year 476, but the Eastern Empire would last for another 1,000 years and only decline in 1453 due to attacks by the Ottoman Turks. In the northern part of Europe, we had the Vikings, and the Vikings were both seafarers and invaders. Explorer Leif Erikson was renowned for landing in what would be today present day Canada, and probably should be credited as being the first person from Europe known to have reached North America. In a way, we don't have like Leif Erikson Day, like we have Christopher Columbus Day, but Leif Erikson probably was, way ahead of his time. In When the Byzantine Empire fell in 1453, scholars traveled westward with ancient Greek manuscripts. And around the same time, the printing press was being invented in Germany. And as a result, a lot of the knowledge of the ancient Greeks was preserved, and thanks in part to Johannes Gutenberg's printing press and making it possible for scholars in the West to study classic works of literature. These breakthroughs help bring about what is known as a time period called the Renaissance. The word Renaissance means rebirth. And this period of time, which started kind of at the end of the 1400s and the beginning of the 1500s, was a period of artistic and intellectual activity that had spread throughout Europe. Probably better known for the time period of bringing about some of the best artists that were known throughout parts of Western Europe. But after the collapse of the Roman Empire, Italy's cities formed their own states, kind of like the old Greek, um, ancient Greeks, where they had their own city states. Italy was a series of these city states following the demise of the Roman Empire. And each one had their own government, army, laws, and fought their own wars. These cities became the centers of trade and wealth. And the Renaissance was basically possible due to the rich merchants who encouraged and supported the creativity of artists. One of the best known works of this era was from Leonardo da Vinci, known as the Mona Lisa. By the 1400s, Europe wanted to do most of its or do more business with China, but the land routes were long and dangerous. And so in the late 1400s, Prince Henry of Portugal was responsible for the Portuguese exploration and sea trade with South Asia. Christopher Columbus, who was an Italian, but he was also a voyager for the people of Spain, he looked for Asia and he reached the Americas instead. Spain became the most powerful country in Europe as a result of all this exploration and built an empire in Mexico, Central and South America. Europeans also traded goods with the Americans, known as the Columbian Exchange. Christianity was a major force in Europe because of the Roman Empire. The Western branch of Christianity became known as the Roman Catholic Church, and the Eastern branch became known as the Greek Orthodox Church. In the 1520s, the ideas of Martin Luther led to the Protestant Reformation, uh, which basically allowed for Luther to break away from the Catholic Church and to form his own religious faith known as Lutheranism. In the 1800s, Scandinavian countries became prosperous democracies. Spain and Portugal lost their empires, and Greece and Italy became independent countries. Before the mid 1800s, Italy was divided into small states. The rise of Italian nationalism was led to the unification of Italy as a kingdom in 1861 by a man named Giuseppe Garibaldi. In the 1920s, following World War I, Benito Mussolini came to power as a dictator, and he placed Italy under a dictatorship. He also formed alliances with Adolf Hitler, and he fought as Hitler's ally during World War II until Italy was defeated in 1945. After World War II, Italy became a democracy with a parliament and a prime minister. Thank you very much.